Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Steve Fretzin. This is the Be That Lawyer podcast. Today we've got Be That Lawyer live. We are doing part two. We just got done with part one, and holy crap, was it good? If you don't mind me saying, guys. We've got a live audience here. You guys, please feel free to use the chat and share what you're thinking as it's happening. Feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. I've got some questions lined up, but would love to hear what you're asking and wanting to know out of this great panel. We've got Dan Scola here, Eido Walny and Karl Seelbach. You can check out their bios in the show notes below. But we're going to jump in and just get started here. And I also want to just take a moment to thank our wonderful sponsors, of course, Rankings.io, Law Her Podcast, and LegalVerse Media, all fantastic fans and sponsors of the show. With that, let's get into it. We spent a good amount of time in segment one talking about mistakes lawyers make. We talked about positive habits. We talked about the evolution of how you kind of came to be, and also what was your big mistake, which we'll cover later in round two in our second segment today. But one thing that I'd love to ask you guys, and let's start off with Eido on this one. It's really about finding what your jam is. Like, there's so many different ways to market, so many different ways to business develop, and some are better than others for certain people in different places. So with the different strategies that are out there, what's one or two that's really delivered for you time and time again that have gotten you the best results? Eido?
So one of the things I tell people is you gotta love it, or else you're not going to be good at it, right? I mean, it's true of every facet of life. So for me, as an estate planner, I try to find ways to marry my passions outside of work with my passions inside of work. And so one of the things I like to do outside of work is make cufflinks. And one of the other things I like to do outside of work is restore cars, mostly old cars. Guess who likes cufflinks and likes to play with cars? It's people who are home run clients for me. And so those are really great people who I love to spend time with. I don't necessarily need to even push what I'm doing on a day in, day out basis, but it's amazing how many big car shows I get invited to across the country. I get invited to Meacham auctions. I mean, these are where all of my clients live and play, and I'm not fighting to be let in. I'm being invited in, and that has been transformative to my career. It makes every day fun. I tell people when I first started my practice, if I didn't know the area code of the phone calls that were coming into my office, I probably didn't want that phone call. Now, the most exciting calls I get day in, day out are from the area codes I don't recognize. And so I attribute the sort of marriage of my passions in and out of the office together as being transformative in my rainmaking.
Yeah. If you can build business doing something you enjoy and with people you enjoy, I mean, there probably isn't. I mean, I don't know what Dan and Karl are going to say, but it's kind of hard to one up, because that's like the promised land of how to get business, is just do stuff that you enjoy and it comes your way. But we'll see what Dan has to say. Go for it, Dan.
Well, I actually like that idea because one of my passions is music, and my daughter's a fairly well-known singer-songwriter and so forth. And I meet people who are into music, and that leads to protection of IP. It just does. I mean, a lot of them have trademarks, a lot of them have copyright issues, and then they know people, and that sort of breeds that whole. But I was going to say it's also kind of important to find out what people's needs are and not try to sell. I'm not selling very much. I don't have to sell. I find out what they know what I do, but they don't know enough about what I do. So they tend to ask questions. If I'm interested in them, they usually get interested in you. And I think that's a really nice way of communicating. Just find out a lot about it, and don't stop there. Like you know something about their family, know something about their interests, know something about what they do during the day, what are they passionate about. A lot of times you'll find enough commonality there where they become almost an initial, not just a contact, but a friend, and then you can just then work on that. And there's nothing wrong with having clients that are good friends. I mean,
Yeah.
that can only help, in my view.
It sounds like it's important to take notes and maybe even have some kind of a CRM or some kind of system to keep track of the information about people. So,
Yeah.
what you can fit in your head and what you can't. And, I use a Remarkable too. I don't know if you guys know about this amazing device, but every note I take is in here. I'm paper free. And if I want to pull up information on you, Dan, I go to your file, I pull it up, and it helps me remember your amazing daughter who's, singing and writing. So whatever it might be, I mean, just think about that's a relationship building tool 101 for most people.
Yeah.
So Carl?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm fairly strategic, or I think I have been over the last 10 years of building this firm in the relationships I'm trying to develop and who I'm trying to get to know. And this may be unique to personal injury, I don't know, but trying to identify people who control more than one client's book of business. So in the world of personal injury, that could be third-party administrators, it could be insurance companies, someone who, once they get to know you and know that you do a really great job and are a good communicator and stay on top of their files, they're going to recommend you to everyone else that they know, especially if you make their job in life easier. So for what we do, third-party administrators, companies like Sedgwick, Liberty Mutual, Corvell, Helmsman, the better job we do for them, that's great, because then they're going to recommend us to all of their other clients, because they know when they send us a file, they don't have to pester us for an update. We're proactive. If anything, they're like, oh, too much communication. That's refreshing versus never knowing what's going on with your cases. So I think that's important. And the other thing that I could probably do a better job of it, but I try to do a pretty good job of it, is staying top of mind. And whether that's through social media, whether that's through a newsletter, whether that's through speaking engagements, some of the folks that you meet do want to work with you someday, but it may be that they don't have anything to send you yet. And so you need to make sure that when that file finally comes across their desk, or that need comes across their email screen, that they think of you. And depending on what type of work that is, it could be in Dan's line of work, it could be some people that he met that love music. Well, if they haven't heard from Dan in 2 years, they may forget that he can help them with trademark or copyright issues. So you have to stay top of mind.
Yeah. I would just add that for busy lawyers, which is most of the lawyers I work with and know, going after the low-hanging fruit, like that's one strategy that pays off time and time again. It's 5 minutes at the end of a business call with a client saying, what else is going on? What else can I do for you? How are you doing? What's going on with your daughter? Whatever it might be. And whether you're able to make an ask, if you're comfortable with that, or you want to learn how to do that, that's something we could talk about. But ultimately, being curious and interested, and that 5 minutes at the end could create business that wouldn't have happened if you just said, all right, well, we're on it, and click, right? And also just like knowing who your A and B clients are and staying really, really close with them. They're going to be your best referral sources. And so it's not about how much time you spend and put towards it. It could be highly targeted and focused, because time is money, and it's kind of difficult to spread yourself so thin. So really good stuff there. Great collaboration on that one. This one's a little bit more about relationships. I think the three of you have done an amazing job at building relationships. And one of the things people are concerned about is you go out and you network and you meet all these people and you've got all these relationships, but how does it turn into business? You can know everyone, but that doesn't necessarily process into work coming your way. So how do you network and build relationships and develop clients and referral sources from that exercise? Dan, you want to start us out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just being very upfront about what your goals are, and really asking. I mean, if you're having lunch with someone 3 or 4 times and business never comes up, they're going to assume that it's not going to come up. You have to tell them, look, we are having a nice, friendly lunch, and we're getting to know each other, but I also have an interest in developing my business, and you can help me, and I can help you. So let's do this. We can do more than just have lunch. We can, I think you have to ask. You just do. And if you don't, you're not going to get it. No one's going to just say, oh, everybody's busy and it takes time to give you business. They have to think about it. They're on the line when they give you something. They're on the line and they're trusting you, right? So it's on them if it doesn't work out. Yeah. So they're careful about who they give business to. So I just think you have to ask.
Yeah. And again, there's people that get trapped into what's called the friend zone, right? You've got this GC that could send all this work to you, but you're friends. And it's like, how do you bring up
Yeah.
business. You know, there are strategies that we talk about on a regular basis that help people get out of the friend zone. And again, whether you make a direct ask, maybe just ask a lot more questions and be super curious about their business, number of different approaches. But, you know, and then maybe you figure out they're never going to give you business and say, all right, then we're just going to stay friends. And now I know. And there's other places you can go, right, Dan?
Sooner rather than later. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think offering, similar kind of fact patterns and saying how you handle it sometimes then is a nice lead into, oh, so you've done something like this before.
Yeah. Yeah. Karl?
I mean, for me, doing personal injury defense work, I won't say it's formulaic, but there's at least some qualifiers. Like if I'm interested in doing their work, I often need to ask them, hey, what is the process for getting approved? I mean, a lot of these companies are Fortune 500 companies, so you're not just going to randomly get assigned something. There's hurdles to jump through, which honestly makes the ask a little bit easier. You know, hey, Steve, I'd love a chance to work with you someday. What's the process for getting applying to potentially work with you? And then that kind of starts the process a little bit. I also, one thing that I thought of when Dan was speaking is, you know, lawyers have most lawyers I know have a very bad habit, which is when someone says, how are you doing? How are things going at the firm? The response almost always is, oh my God, I'm so busy. You know, I'm slammed. And so guess where I don't want to send my work if I'm talking to a lawyer. If they tell me how busy they are and that they're feeling overwhelmed, I'm probably not going to send them a case. So, you know, no matter how busy you may be, and you may be really busy, if you want to bring in more work with the idea that you're going to eventually divvy that out, right? We haven't talked about delegation and growing teams yet. Don't talk about how busy you are. It's okay to say, you know, oh, you know, I've been pretty steady lately, and you know, to try to pick.
You might be using your inside voice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that. You know?
You know, it's funny that Karl said that. I used to be one of those people who would tell people how busy I was and realized quickly that that was a mistake and tempered down how I would respond to that question, because I think there's a lot of merit to the idea of, well, if that person's so busy, you know, I don't want to send you more work and create problems for you. And it's the opposite effect I wanted. And so it's a great observation from Karl that I've also made in my career. You know, for me, I think different a little bit from Dan and Karl is doing estate planning. Our clients are a lot more transactional. You know, I don't have a single big client or a stable of, you know, 20 clients that are going to feed me all year long. I've constantly got to be hustling for more clients. And so for me, you know, I'm generally working as a rainmaker with people in the financial services industry, financial advisors, bankers, insurance people, accountants. And so what I'm always looking to do from my perspective to get on their radars is find things to throw their way. You know, for example, we easily could do tax returns, gift tax returns. You know, those aren't very difficult. But for me, it's a very easy layup referral for my accounting friends. And I'm not losing a ton of work. And frankly, it's busy work that I'd rather not be doing anyway. But in exchange for dishing that off, now I'm on the radar for all of these accountants who, you know, if they've got one good estate planning client or one good probate referral, that's going to make up these 709 gift tax returns in spades. You know, same thing with the good evergreen financial advisory referral, a good bank referral. You know, it's not that difficult. So what I try to do is get in the positive column of making referrals and show people that I'm someone who's looking to have a reciprocal relationship, not someone who's only looking for the take. You know, what can you give me? I want them to know that I'm a partner in this and that there's going to be as much give as there is take, if not more. And I think for people who are in my situation, you know, that helps tremendously.
Steve, I just thought of one more thing.
Please.
It's sort of a follow up to both what Karl and Eido said. You know, this business about saying, you know, I'm really busy. I do not say that either, because I don't think it's a good idea. I wouldn't send it to someone who's overwhelmed, right? But what I usually say is something like, you know, we have some bandwidth right now. You know, it's fortunate that we have some bandwidth. So if you in this particular area, so if you need something done, we can get it. We can get it done for you. Yeah. And that I've found that that's very effective.
One of the most frustrating. Yeah, go, Karl.
I have one exception to my own rule. I did have a client recently a prospective client reach out, and they wanted to assign us 10 new cases. and we really were busy and understaffed. And I told that lead very transparently, I can't commit to that right now because I'm worried that we wouldn't be able to properly staff your cases. But let me reach back out to you. I think we're hiring right now. I think we'll be in a better spot by August. Could we reconnect then? And we just had that call last week and it went great. And now we've staffed up and we're ready to take on some cases for that prospect. So I think there can be times when, you don't want to overcommit and underdeliver, but usually I don't talk about busyness level.
One of the most frustrating things I hear when I'm teaching lawyers about how to ask for quality introductions from clients that think they're the greatest thing in sliced bread is they say, oh, well, I thought you were, you're always so busy, or I didn't think you needed any more or wanted any more work. And the lawyer just goes like this, oh my God, like they can't believe that that's the response. They could have been getting business for 5 years or more. And that's the image and what they're putting out. So really, really important points that you guys are making. Here's something that we haven't really covered in great detail, and I would love to hear, because there's two sides of the mountain that I like lawyers to climb to build a law practice. One of them is the business development side, the relationships and client development and all that. The other side is the marketing side. It's the thought leadership side. It's what makes you the known quantity in your space. And the best example I've been giving lately, when I was in a plane crash years ago, 1996, and I had both of my arms broken, and it's a long story, and you can see it on my LinkedIn profile if you want to hear the story. But my dad pushed a phone up to my face and said, talk to Bob, he's your lawyer. And I'm curious if you know what lawyer that was, Bob, in Chicago for a plane crash. Hey everybody, you ever wonder why top executives and athletes are so successful? It's typically because they have a coach, someone that is looking at them from the outside to identify their gaps, identify their potential. That's what I do. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I'm here to help you be that lawyer. If you're interested in a free consultation, click the link below and we'll get together and we'll identify where you can make improvements to be that lawyer. Oh, putting you on the spot.
I don't.
Okay. If I say the name, you'll know it, I think, right away. Bob Clifford.
Okay.
No? Yeah? No? Maybe not?
I know a little bit. So I grew up in a lawyer family. So a lot of people had similar last names as mine.
Okay. But Bob Clifford, if in aviation and personal injury, in Chicago and even nationally is world renowned in this case. So, there was no other lawyer that my dad thought of or called. My Larry the lawyer, by the way, everybody. He knew exactly who to call, and that's where lawyers want to be. They want to be that first call. If I need an estate plan in Wisconsin, like, where am I going? Right? I'm not going to search on Google. Like, there's one name. So to that end, what are things that you guys are doing and that you recommend lawyers do to build up that thought leadership and really become the known person in their space? And, let's start off with you, because I think you've done an excellent job at this.
Thank you. For me, again, I've paid a lot of tuition at the School of Hard Knocks, but what I've found has worked well for us is that thought leadership, being out in front of the ship, has worked tremendously well. And so we do a lot of speaking, we do a lot of writing. We have gotten to the point where we're being sought after for interviews. And so we're getting quoted in magazines and whatnot. And not to disparage anyone who does paid marketing and things like that. For us, it doesn't work well. I think clients and our referral sources see the difference between a paid opportunity and a more organic one. And so when I can tell people that I was just recently quoted in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, or Fortune magazine, that's way different and way better for our practice than saying, hey, did you see the ad that I'm running in Fortune magazine or the New York Times? And I try to stay ahead of all of that as opportunities. There are various websites that you can subscribe to for reporters who are looking for people who are experts in a field to offer quotes. If a reporter calls me, I either answer that call immediately or call them back on really short turnaround times, because oftentimes they have a very limited window to write their stories. And if they know that you're someone who will be responsive like that, they keep going back to the well. I think to Karl's point, I try to stay very active on places like LinkedIn, so that when that client who hasn't needed me for a really long time starts to look for an estate planner, I want to be active enough on LinkedIn that my name comes up at the top of their feed, so that that window of opportunity isn't missed because I wasn't being proactive enough. And, for our practice, that's worked really well.
Fantastic. Dan? If you're a rainmaker and you're feeling like you're on an island, you don't have anyone to share your ideas with, solve problems with, you're going to want to check out my Rainmaker Roundtables. Click the link below and learn more.
Yeah, I think getting into public relations area is good. Like not paid advertising. I have a public relations person who I hire, and she just looks for opportunities for me to either speak or to be involved in an article, and I answer them immediately, just like Eido was saying. I mean, these people they're on deadlines. They need to write things, and if they want to write something and use you as a quote, they need it then. There's going to be 100 people who will answer that within a day or so. But if you're in there in the first couple of hours, you've got an opportunity to be quoted, and that's really important. So I would not go the paid route. The paid route to me it's always been a waste of money.
Yeah.
But getting yourself out there and your name out there and the firm out there on special things, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or Forbes or London Times or whatever it is, that's the thing to do, I think.
And people, writing for publications too. Like I write for Above the Law, and one of my legal recruiter friends asked me, he said, "Hey, I see you're doing really well with them." He goes, "Do you think if I shared an article with you, you'd throw it out at them?" And I did, and they took him. Now he's writing for them too. So you just never know whether it's PR or it's having a column or doing something proactive with a publication that gets some real movement. I love all of that. Karl?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what I've implemented at my firm because I think it directly addresses that. We require every attorney to do at least one speaking engagement or write one article per year. And, some of the associates are maybe a little surprised at that when they join us because it is truly a requirement. And part of it is if we don't force it, you put it off, you put it off, you put it off. And before you know it, 5 years, 10 years has gone by and you haven't done any speaking engagements and you haven't written any articles. And I found that, back to kind of being top of mind, there's really, in my opinion, and this is true with my software company as well, which I'll mention briefly because it's relevant to this, there's no substitute for speaking engagements. There just really isn't. Speaking at conferences, speaking at webinars, speaking at podcasts, there's just no better way to get your name out there, especially if you're speaking at a conference where the topic is directly relevant to what you do. Guess what? The audience is probably full of people who could send you business, whether that's, a potential client sitting in the audience or they know someone who could benefit from your expertise. So I think speaking engagements are kind of I consider them the no-brainer. They're the heavier lift. There's a reason there aren't tons of people lining up to speak. I mean, not to mention, maybe fear of public speaking, but it takes some time to prepare the presentations. But I think it really does reap significant rewards.
Love it. Love all of that. And I just want to add one thing, and that is whether you're creating, you're writing, you're doing video, audio, podcast, whatever it is, repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. So I spoke at the DuPage County Bar here in Chicago earlier this week. I asked, would you send me the video of me speaking and doing my new presentation on how to build a brand and all that? Right away, they sent me that video. I gave it to my assistant, Ian, who's hanging out on the call somewhere. And he's going to break it up into pieces and we're going to repurpose it because all of it's gold from my perspective, not, not bragging, just saying like, I put a lot of time into it. Everything I'm sharing is valuable. Like this is valuable. So repurpose and leverage the content that you have to get as much juice out of the squeeze. All right, everybody, we're back with our final segment and I won't start with Karl. But I will start with Eido, and this is Eido's big mistake. All right, let's hear what it is, and let's hear what came of it.
So again, I'm not a big believer in making mistakes. I think everybody pays tuition at the School of Hard Knocks, and everything is a learning experience. But I think in terms of, again, learning experiences, there's no right way to go about marketing. There's no right way to do rainmaking, right? Something that works for me might not work for Karl, might not work for Dan. I'm sure we have a lot of the same habits and a lot of overlap, but there are things that we do based on our personalities, our practice areas that just aren't going to work well. But I think one thing that I have fallen into this trap, certainly, and I'm sure others have as well, is sometimes you'll think something's a great idea or think something's working and stick with it too long before you are finally willing to admit that it's just not, it's a dead end. For me, I think experientially, oftentimes that's with different organizations. Things, sometimes organizations are great and they're very fruitful and you meet a lot of people, but I've made the mistake of sticking with one organization in particular comes to mind as one that I never got anything out of. They are very good at taking my membership dues, but no one would ever answer emails. I never got invited to do things. I never felt like I was making contacts, but it was a prestigious organization. So I felt like I needed to stick with it. Mistake. I was also involved in another big national organization that frankly I just stuck with too long and the relationships got a little stale and I probably have just overstayed my time there and should have cycled out earlier. It's a mistake that people make, but again, it's a learning opportunity, something that I probably won't do in the future, but there's no need to stick with something you think is a great idea that isn't being fruitful.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it's like a bad hire, right? Slow to hire, quick to fire. Like you just, how long you gonna hold on to a bad apple, right? Sometimes you got to just make your move.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let's go to Dan.
Yeah, I think complacency is one that comes to mind for me. I mean, when things are going really well, you tend to let the slow down on the gas a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake. I mean, it's not like you have to go 100% all the time, but you should go at a nice speed. You shouldn't rest on your laurels. And that goes for even the contacts you have in organizations, because people move, in companies, they just move around a lot now, and they'll take the next best job. So if your contact goes, and you don't have contacts that are deeper in the organization than that one contact, you have the client is at risk then. So I think it's important to not just say, well, I know this guy so well, he'd never give him my business away, he's always going to give it to me or whatever. That's simply not true. He doesn't have control of where he's going to go. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
So I just said, don't be complacent and just continue to push.
Fantastic. Karl.
I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind. You made me think about my past mistakes more. Good question, Steve.
And I'm not even your wife.
Yeah, I know. Thanks. The thing that I think I waited too long to do in my career was delegate. And I think that, can be very relevant when we're talking about rainmaking, because, one of your biggest luxuries, or maybe lack of it, is time, right? Is finding the time to do what you need to do to work on your business, as I was describing earlier. And the faster you can let go of some of those things that can be delegated either to a vendor or, hire someone to help you with things that aren't your highest and best use, the more time you can focus on the rainmaking and the business development. So I waited way too long to do that. I mean, when we started my firm in 2015, I was IT, I was HR, I was payroll, I was the billing person. And I kept doing that for years. I mean, we're at 3 to 5 years. We had employees, and I was still the one that would buy the computer and run the HR or the payroll system. And I finally talked to a coach who said, "Hey, you've got to delegate this stuff. You've got to be able to grow, and you've got to be able to grow to a point where the business is going to run, whether you're gone for a week or a month or 6 months. You've got to build the system, and you got to be willing to delegate and let go." So that was a mistake I made in the past that I've since rectified. But I think it's one that can really hold you back if you don't delegate.
Yeah. And you got to look at your time and look at what your value is, right, to your clients and in the marketplace. And, you're doing things at 10 and 20 and $50 an hour that are all delegatable, and you're just holding on to it like luggage. And it's not in anyone's best interest. So, wow, what a great panel. Thank you guys so much. If you're live with us right now, hang out. We've got 1 or 2 questions in the Q&A we're going to hit. But I want to thank Dan Scola, Eido Walny, Karl Seelbach for being our amazing guests today. I want to thank again our sponsors, Rankings.io, Law Her Podcast, and LegalVerse Media. Don't go anywhere, but I want to thank everybody for being with us with Be That Lawyer Live. This is the place to be to get insider tips from legal industry's top rainmakers and experts. And I appreciate you all. Be safe, be well. We'll talk again soon. And let's take a moment though. And one of my clients is on the line, and this is such a smart, amazing attorney, Stuart. And he's asking, is there one thing you'd suggest that will repeatedly come up in business development that we can practice or prepare in advance, maybe something unexpected. You want to jump on that?
I mean, I think the question that comes up every time that lawyers are not really good at is, what do you do, right? What is that elevator speech? You've got 25 seconds, 30 seconds to tell people what you do, and people hem and haw, or the story changes and you're one thing to one person and a different thing to another person. I think we hit our stride when we could sum up what we do, at least as a core literal, like you're going up from the first floor to the fifth floor. What is it that we do to get that story straight and consistent and to deliver it confidently? You know it's going to come up. Just be better at that and sum up what you do very, very concisely.
And by the way, not a terrible idea to leverage AI, since we have it, with us, to just tell AI what you do and what your passion is, and to ask it to help you communicate that in an efficient way, and see what it comes back to you with. It might be, mind blowing that it's like, oh, that's what I need to say, instead of just hemming and hawing about, I do this and I do this and I do this, and watching people fall asleep in front of you. So great point there. Dan?
Yeah, I think for me, the question often comes up, have you ever handled something like this? And if you're not ready for that question, because a lot of times the facts are going to be very different. And there's multiple areas in IP law that you have to think about, and sometimes all of them apply. So if you're not ready to handle a general question like that, when they come up with a specific situation, you're not going to be able to handle it either. So that's part of the elevator speech. I think you have to have that sort of, really distilled down, and you can't overpromise. Like, you can't say, I've always said, but you probably have handled something close enough that you can say, not exactly like that, but I have handled things that are very close. For example.
And be careful about answering the question without getting more information. I was hit up, so I'm doing a 300 equity partner retreat in Fort Lauderdale in November for a big firm that I'm a big fan of and have a bunch of clients. They asked me about pricing strategies. And I was thinking, pricing strategies. I mean, I do dabble in that, but I thought, I don't know what they're going to expect me to do. They're all, they're a big firm doing regular rates. And when I got on the call with them, it was not about rate strategies. It was about the fact that they're raising rates and they need their lawyers to be supportive of that and not write off all that work. And they need to have strategies of how to build extra value. I was like, well, God, that's right in my wheelhouse. So just asking a question to get more detail might end up saving you some pain on answering a question without really knowing what was behind it. Fantastic. Karl?
Well, first, Stuart, I think it's an excellent question. And I'm going to piggyback on Eido briefly. I think that the most obvious one is, so what do you do when you get asked what you do for a living? And many lawyers, and I've been guilty of this myself, heck, I may have even done it today, is, I'm a defense lawyer. I'm a personal injury defense lawyer. When the response could be something like, I help companies protect themselves in personal injury lawsuits that could cost them millions, and I show them how to avoid getting sued in the first place. And which sparks questions. Well, how do you do that? Well, tell me about a case. And so then you can have those backup success stories, examples of, either what you do and how you do it well, or even better than that, why you do it. Like, what's your why? What inspired you to get into that type of law to begin with? I love Dan's story in the first episode for this about what inspired him to go into copyright law. That's a great answer. And then the other thing that I think that will come up, so to go back to Stuart's question, what comes up almost every time at some point, what do you charge? And I think that, people sometimes are uncomfortable with that question and will say, well, it depends, or, we have some flexibility. The better answer is, hey, we're not the cheapest, but clients hire us because of our expertise, and we ultimately can save them far more than what we cost, whether that's through winning the case, avoiding litigation, or getting really great quality answers fast. Happy to go over our rates with you, and, probably buy yourself time unless you just have standard rates that you're ready to rattle off. But definitely, be ready for that, because it does come up. And unless you want to be the cheapest, I would suggest pointing out at the outset that you're not the cheapest, because if the client's only worried about the cost, it's probably not a client that you want.
Well, I'll piggyback on that, and Stuart knows what I'm going to say because he's heard it from me a couple of times. Number one is, it sounds like, rates are really important to you, and I get that. Help me understand, what's at the you know, what's at the precipice of that, or what's at the, you know, what's the meaning behind that, or why is that kind of your, you know, where you're kind of starting with me, and just hear what they say. They got ripped off, or they got overcharged, or they're paying $1,000 an hour and they're tired of it. If somebody tells them they're paying $1,000 an hour and they're tired of it, and you're at $750, you should have a big smile inside of your heart, because the likelihood that they're gonna be thrilled with $750 when they've been paying $1,000 is, you know, it's probably there. The other one is something I call a green redirect, which is say, you know, asking about price in rates is a fantastic question. I understand that that's at the heart of you know, what we want to talk about today. What I would love to do though is just learn a little bit more about your situation, what's going on, what your needs are. That'll help me understand the staffing and where our rates might come in. Is it okay if we start there and end with that today? And the person says, oh yeah, that's great. Now you're not giving rates up front, right? You're doing diagnosis first and prescription later. So there's a number of different ways to unpack that, but I'm really glad that you brought that up, Karl.
No,
Good
I
stuff.
think that's a fantastic approach that you just mentioned as well.
Well, listen, I think I've been around the block a couple times, you know? So listen, is there any other questions from our panel, from our audience today? I think we're still got you guys here. This is the last chance. Otherwise, we're going to wrap things up a few minutes early, which lawyers tend to like, by the way. Go figure. All right, everybody. We are going to wrap up then. I want to thank the participants for coming, and hopefully you got a ton of value from this. Please do the exit survey as you wrap up. It'll take you 30 seconds. Give us some feedback. If you want to contact any of our, do you guys want to give your contact information real quick? Eido, how do people get in touch with you?
I mean, my name is Eido, so if you can't find me, that's wrong. You don't even have to spell my name right in Google in order to find me, but it's Walny Legal Group, ewalny@walnylegal.com.
Awesome. And Dan?
Yeah. Daniel Scola and Hoffman@Barron.com.
Fantastic. Karl?
Yeah, I'd give everyone my short one, which is Karl@scribe.ai, Karl with a K and Scribe with a K. And I also dropped my LinkedIn in the chat.
Yeah,
So
I see that you guys did that. Really, really good.
Yeah.
I can't tell you three how much I appreciate you guys coming and doing this and sharing your wisdom and being on the show and just everything that you've done. And it's really incredible. This is gonna, you know, come out in early October, and I'm hoping that you guys are able to hear it and enjoy it again and share it. But I just want to thank everybody here and there and out there, and really, really great stuff. This was hopefully a great way that you guys were able to add value and get your name out there, but also add value for the legal community that we all care so much about. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Be well.
Bye, all.
Are you ever curious what's really holding you back in business development? Sometimes it's hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle. I'm Steve Fretzin, and I can help you grow your book of business. Get a 30-minute free consultation with me. We'll identify gaps, identify your potential, and let's take it to the next level so you can be that lawyer. Click the link below for a free consultation.